In the heart of the city, an old tenement stood abandoned, its brick facade pockmarked by time and neglect. Even from the outside, the building exuded a quiet despair, its broken windows and sagging cornices whispering secrets of forgotten lives. Locals said that if you walked past on a moonless night, you might catch the faint sound of muffled voices or the echo of distant, sorrowful cries. The stories made it a place both feared and strangely fascinating, a repository of memories that refused to die. I had heard the rumors for years, each retelling a mix of urban legend and genuine tragedy. Yet curiosity, that insidious lure, eventually won over caution. One chilly autumn evening, armed with nothing more than a battered flashlight and an inexplicable need to see the truth for myself, I approached the tenement. The heavy door, its paint peeling like old skin, swung open with a groan that seemed to announce my arrival to unseen listeners. Inside, the lobby was a cavern of darkness and decay. Dust motes danced in the single beam of my light, and the air was thick with the scent of damp and rust. I could almost feel the weight of years pressing in around me. Every step I took on the cracked tile floor echoed in the emptiness, each sound magnified by the silence that enveloped the space. In that moment, I understood what the locals meant. The tenement was alive with the memories of those who had once inhabited it, and perhaps even with something more. I began my slow exploration of the building, each room a small world of its own. The walls were adorned with layers of peeling wallpaper and faded photographs. In one room, the shattered remains of a mirror reflected my wide, uncertain eyes that soon learned to notice more than their own fear. I felt as though I was walking through a museum of lost souls, every surface and crevice holding fragments of untold stories. As I ventured deeper, I could hear it, the whispers. At first, they were so faint I almost dismissed them as tricks of my imagination. But gradually they grew clearer. They were disembodied, overlapping voices that murmured in a language I couldn't quite place. A language of grief, regret, and longing. The sound seemed to emanate from the very walls, as if the building itself was speaking. I followed the voices down a long, narrow corridor. The light from my flashlight trembled as I held it steady, and with each step, my heart pounded louder in my chest. The corridor was lined with closed doors, each one hiding a different fragment of the building's past. Some doors were slightly ajar, revealing rooms frozen in time. A child's bedroom with a lone, dusty toy left on a broken shelf. A living room with a scorched photograph of a smiling family, now nothing more than a ghostly reminder of happier days. At one point, I reached a door marked Room 101 in peeling, almost illegible lettering. Something compelled me to push it open. Inside, the moonlight filtered weakly through a broken window, casting long, eerie shadows across the room. Faded photographs hung crookedly on the walls, and handwritten notes, perhaps scribbled by previous residents in moments of despair, were scrawled on the plaster. I felt as though I were intruding on a sacred, mournful ritual. The whispers grew louder in that room, and with them came the unmistakable sound of footsteps, soft, deliberate, as though someone or something was moving just out of sight. I spun around, my pulse racing, but found nothing but the lingering darkness. For a moment, I considered turning back, but the insistent pull of the mystery urged me onward. I began to recall the scattered accounts I'd heard over the years, tales of families lost in tragedy, of desperate souls who had never truly left these walls. In one corner, I discovered a dusty diary, its pages yellowed with age. The entries spoke of a time when the building had been filled with life and pain. One entry, in particular, sent shivers down my spine. It described a night of terror when the whispers turned into screams and one resident vanished without a trace. Before I could read further, a cold gust of wind brushed against my neck. I froze. There was no open window in that room, at least none that I could see. Then I heard it, a distinct, chilling voice, separate from the overlapping murmurs, whispering directly into the silence. Leave, or become one with us. The voice was soft yet resolute, carrying with it a promise of eternal sorrow. In that moment, my heart felt as if it might burst, and I realized that whatever had spoken was not merely an echo of the past. It was an active, living presence. Panic surged through me, and I bolted from the room. The sound of my hurried footsteps blended with a rising chorus of whispers that now seemed to chase me through the corridors. I raced down hallways that twisted and turned unpredictably, each new passageway echoing with the voices of those long gone. It felt as though the building itself was shifting. Doors that once led to dead ends now opened onto new, unexplored spaces, and the very architecture betrayed logic. Time and space blurred together in the oppressive gloom. I burst through a heavy door and into the cold embrace of night. Outside, the city's lights looked distant and indifferent, as if they had nothing to do with the dark secrets that lay within the tenement. I didn't stop running until I reached the safety of my apartment, where I collapsed in a trembling heap, gasping for air. For hours, I lay awake, the image of the tenement seared into my mind. Even in the comfort of my bed, the whispers haunted me. Now, every night as I lie in bed, I can still hear them. The persistent, mournful whispers that seep from the walls of that forsaken building. They call out to me in a language of despair, a reminder of the promise that was made. I know I should forget, that I should close that chapter of my life forever. But the tenement has left an indelible mark on my soul. It is as if a part of me now belongs to that place, a silent echo of its long-forgotten inhabitants. Sometimes, when the night is especially still, I can almost sense the building's presence on the edge of my thoughts. I imagine its crumbling walls reaching out, yearning for company. I see spectral figures flitting in and out of vision. A child's pale face, a grieving parent, a lone, sorrowful man who vanished without a trace. And with each whispered memory, I feel the tenement calling me back, inviting me to uncover more of its tragic secrets. I have tried to forget, to drown out the persistent echo with the mundane distractions of everyday life. Yet, as time passes, the voices only grow stronger, more insistent. They seep into my dreams, and sometimes I wake up with a cold sweat, convinced that the tenement's spectral inhabitants are closer than they ever were. Their voices now form a constant hum in the background of my existence, an unending lullaby of despair. I have come to realize that the tenement is not merely a building. It is a repository of anguish, a silent witness to every loss and every tragedy that has occurred within its walls. It holds the memories of those who once lived, loved, and suffered in its embrace, and it seems determined to share its sorrow with anyone brave enough to listen. But I was never brave. I was foolish. I was reckless. And now I am haunted. It started subtly at first. The sensation that I had left something behind, like the ghost of my own presence still lingered within those walls. The memory of the building clung to me like a damp chill I couldn't shake. Every so often, I would turn my head sharply, convinced I had heard something, a whisper just at the edge of perception. A soft exhale, my own name spoken from a great, unfathomable distance. At night, my dreams became corridors, endless, twisting, suffocating hallways lined with doorways that led nowhere, that stretched and distorted like a reflection in broken glass. The whispers followed me in those dreams, just as they had in reality, growing louder when I ignored them, fading when I strained to listen. I never saw the source of the voices, but I always knew they were there, waiting. In the mornings, I would wake drenched in sweat, heart pounding as if I had run for miles. And yet, each night, I would return to those same corridors, those same impossible halls, the same suffocating sense that the tenement was reaching for me, even in sleep. I told myself it was just my imagination, that what I had seen and heard within that building had left an impression, like the remnants of a ghost story told too close to bedtime. But no ghost story had ever felt like this. No ghost story had ever seeped into my waking life. The first time I saw something, really saw something, I was walking home late from work. The street was empty, the glow of passing headlights carving brief tunnels of light between the looming city buildings. And there, in a shop window's reflection, I saw it. A figure, standing just behind me. I spun around so fast that I nearly tripped over myself, breath catching in my throat. But the street was empty, just the quiet hum of the city, the distant wail of a siren. Nothing else. It was then that I noticed the faint, almost imperceptible chill on the back of my neck. Like a breath. Like someone standing close enough to touch. I didn't sleep that night. The following days blurred together in a strange, feverish haze. The whispers, once confined to my dreams, had begun to creep into my waking hours. A voice just behind my ear, a quiet plea from the next room. I would find myself stopping mid-step, listening, heart hammering, convinced that someone had spoken to me. But I was always alone. I stopped answering my phone, stopped seeing friends. I knew what they would say, that I needed rest, that I was letting my mind play tricks on me. But I knew the truth. The tenement had not let me go. And worse, I was beginning to suspect that I did not want it to. There was a sick fascination growing inside me, a terrible yearning I did not understand. I began researching the building's history, searching archives and newspaper records, desperate to learn what had taken place inside those decaying walls. The reports were scattered, fragmented, almost as if the city itself wanted to forget. But I pieced together enough. A fire in 1952 that consumed the top floor. A family, mother, father, and 2 children, gone overnight. No sign of forced entry. No bodies ever recovered. Neighbors reported screams in the night. But when police arrived, the apartment was empty, save for a child's doll sitting upright in the center of the floor, its glass eyes cracked and hollow. More disappearances followed, tenants vanishing without a trace. The landlord found dead at the bottom of the main stairwell, his neck broken as though he had fallen, except his body had been discovered in the middle of the night, long after the building had been locked from the inside. I found photographs, too. Old, grainy black and white images of tenants staring blankly at the camera, their eyes hollow, their expressions vacant. But it wasn't the people in the photos that unnerved me. It was the background, the walls. There was something in the walls, a distortion, a shape just beneath the surface, as though the building itself was watching. And then I found the worst image of all. It was a photograph taken decades ago, an exterior shot of the tenement back when it had been newly built, before time had worn it down. The building stood tall and silent. But there, in one of the upper windows, was a shadow, a silhouette, featureless, watching me. I slammed my laptop shut, breath ragged. It was impossible, a coincidence, a trick of the light. And yet, deep in my gut, I knew better. I should have left it alone. I should have walked away. Instead, I did the one thing I'd sworn I would never do. I went back. It was as if my body moved on its own accord, my feet carrying me toward the building like a moth drawn to an open flame. The street was empty, the world eerily silent, as though the city itself was holding its breath. The door stood ajar, as if it had been expecting me. I stepped inside. The air was thick, suffocating. The scent of damp wood and decay clung to the walls, to my skin, to my lungs. And the whispers, the whispers were waiting. They surrounded me the moment I crossed the threshold. Dozens of voices overlapping, desperate, hungry. I moved through the tenement, retracing my steps, my heart hammering against my ribs. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls, curling at the edges, pulsing like something alive. Then, from deep within the building, I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming closer. I turned the flashlight toward the sound, the beam trembling. And there, at the end of the corridor, something stepped into the light. A figure, featureless, hollow, a perfect shadow, standing impossibly still. And then it spoke, not in a whisper, not in a plea, but in my own voice. You were never supposed to leave. The world tilted. The walls seemed to close in, the voices rising to a deafening crescendo. My flashlight flickered, sputtered, died. I was plunged into absolute darkness, a darkness so thick, so suffocating, that for a moment I wondered if I had been swallowed whole. If I had ceased to exist, the walls, the floor, the ceiling, it all dissolved into nothingness. And then, in the void, the breathing came. Slow, deep, inhale, exhale, but it was not mine. I held my breath, body rigid, ears straining to locate the sound. It was close, closer than I wanted to believe. My skin prickled as a sharp, cold sensation traced along my spine, as though invisible fingers were reaching out, testing me, toying with me. And then, a whisper, right against my ear. You were never supposed to leave. I recoiled, stumbling backward, my heel catching on something unseen. My body crashed against the floor, pain jolting up my spine, but I barely registered it. The darkness was shifting, moving. No, not the darkness. Something within it. Shapes swayed in the void. Figures pulling themselves from the walls like shadows, peeling away from reality. Limbs stretching unnaturally, heads tilting at angles no human should be able to manage. Their whispering voices interwove into a sickening symphony, 1,000 overlapping cries, desperate and hungry. You were never supposed to leave. You heard us. You belonged to us. My breath hitched. I scrambled backward, palms scraping against the decayed floorboards. My mind screamed at me to run, move, escape, but my body refused to obey. The air had changed. It had weight, a suffocating density that pressed against my chest, my throat, making it impossible to breathe. And then I saw it. In the blackness ahead of me, a figure emerged. Not like the others. Taller, still, waiting. I couldn't make out a face, only the suggestion of features. Hollow eyes, a mouth that did not move, yet somehow still spoke. Its presence demanded something of me, an unspoken invitation or a warning. Come back, it said, and this time it wasn't a whisper. It was my own voice. Terror surged through me like an electric current. I pushed myself upright, legs shaking, and ran. I didn't know which direction. I couldn't see, but I ran blindly, the sound of them behind me, their footsteps echoing in unison. The hallway stretched unnaturally, impossibly long, as if the building itself was shifting, reshaping, keeping me trapped. Doors lined the corridor, but none would open. The handles twisted under my grip, locked, sealed, refusing to grant me escape. Behind me, the whispering grew louder, closer. Come back. You were never supposed to leave. You belong to us. The floor beneath me groaned and buckled. My stomach lurched as I was thrown forward. The sensation of falling lasted far too long, as if gravity itself had been warped. And then, impact. I hit the ground hard, the breath ripped from my lungs. Silence. I blinked rapidly, disoriented. The air was damp, thick with rot. I could smell the earth. I was no longer in the tenement. I was beneath it. A basement? No, deeper. Somewhere forgotten. Somewhere that had never meant to be found. The walls were made of stone, slick with moisture, carved with symbols I didn't recognize. The floor was uneven, the ground shifting beneath me, soft, too soft. I reached out instinctively, fingers brushing the surface. It wasn't earth. It was fabric. A sleeve. No sleeves. Dozens of them. The realization curdled in my stomach as my hands moved over the surface, feeling the layers upon layers of clothing. Jackets, dresses, shirts, all crumpled together, buried just beneath the dirt. My fingers caught on buttons on frayed edges. Some of the fabric was damp. Some of it was sticky. And then something moved. Not the fabric. Beneath it, a slow, deliberate shift, as if the earth itself was stirring. I yanked my hand away, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My flashlight was gone, lost in the fall, but a faint light, pale and sickly, seeped in from somewhere above, just enough to illuminate my surroundings. And that was when I saw them. The faces, dozens, maybe hundreds, pressed against the dirt like a grotesque mosaic. Not corpses, not exactly. Their eyes were open, watching, their mouths slightly parted as if caught mid-scream, their expressions frozen in horror, in anguish. No decay, no flesh rotting from bone, just faces preserved in some nightmarish limbo, staring up at me from the ground. The whispering started again, but this time it came from beneath me. I lurched backward, choking on my own breath, my foot sinking into the dirt as though the ground itself wanted to swallow me. The fabric, the faces, the whispering, all of it pulsed beneath my feet like a living, breathing thing. Then, a hand broke through the surface. It shot up from the ground inches from me, fingers stretching, reaching. The skin was taut and gray, as if drained of blood, the nails cracked and broken. I stumbled, barely managing to stay upright. More hands followed, dozens of them, pale, writhing limbs clawing their way out of the earth, dragging themselves upward, pulling bodies free. Their forms were twisted, wrong. Their movements jerky, unnatural like marionettes on invisible strings. And their eyes, their hollow, lifeless eyes locked onto me. A collective whispering rose around me, words overlapping, voices pressing against my skull, filling my head, my lungs, my very veins with their sound. Come back. You belong to us. Come back. Come back. A sudden, sharp pain flared in my leg. I looked down just in time to see a hand gripping my ankle. A face stared up at me from the ground, its mouth moving, whispering words I couldn't understand. Its grip tightened, nails digging into my skin, pulling. I screamed. I kicked.